I'm Andrea Cumpston, Communications Director for the Enterprise Wireless Alliance. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Critical Advocacy Issues for Private Wireless in 2018. Your speaker today is Mark Crosby, President and CEO of the Enterprise Wireless Alliance. Mark brings over 40 years of experience and leadership to his role and is an expert in spectrum policy for private wireless. He serves on the Commerce Spectrum Management Advisory Committee, which advises the Assistant Secretary for Commerce and Communications and Information at NTIA on spectrum policy issues. And he serves as Secretary-Treasurer for the Board of Directors of the Land Mobile Communications Council. For the past 2 years, readers of Mission Critical Communications have named Mark a most influential thought leader for business and industrial enterprises. With that, Mark?
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you everyone who's taking an hour out of their time this afternoon to participate in this webinar. For those of you who don't know me, I'm going to go back to this picture. I'm the chubby old guy standing up talking to EWA members and interested industry folks at our conference last year. So with that, let's keep moving. So we need to probably cover our EWA's bona fides. EWA is an association. We take licensees, vendors, reps, communication service providers, sales rep. We're an alliance. We're an alliance for a reason, because we think collectively decisions are best when all parties involved in the strategies and the advocacy and everything associated with private wireless systems are involved. So inside EWA, there is no one member category that has more pull than others. Everyone is considered the same, and we welcome all types of folks that are involved in private wireless to be participating on EWA. We've been around a while, 1953. I think this is our 65th year, which is, I guess, pretty impressive. We were, for those of you that may know, SIRSA was our first name. We had that for 32 years. And then we were the Industrial Telecommunications Association for another 20 years, and for the past 13 years after the consolidation with AMPTA, we've been the Enterprise Wireless Alliance. I do believe we are the prominent private wireless advocate for this industry. Now, when we drafted this, I was going to use the word leading private wireless, but it's overused. Every association that's in this space says we're the leading, private wireless organization, and yeah, I guess. So I thought it would be better to say we're the prominent one, is we're involved in more activities and advocacy, things regarding spectrum and policies than any other private wireless industry. So I took editorial privilege and scratched out leading and said prominent. I think one of the fundamental strengths of EWA, though, is its governing board. We have 52 of the leaders in this industry, wireless sales and service providers. Every major vendor is on our board. Business enterprises, that's 52, and they are fundamentally the strength that help guide EWA. So, when we take positions at the FCC and in the industry, it's not just Crosby or Liz Sachs. We have the council and guidance of the governing board of directors of 52 very, very prominent and important folks from all facets of the industry helping us. We are obviously a certified frequency advisory committee, and one of the things that is very important to EWA is to continuously innovate to provide, to serve customer needs, innovate not only from the services we provide, but also you have to think out of the box these days when it comes to advocacy. We've sort of, if you look at EWA, there's sort of like 3 buckets of advocacy matters that are of importance to us. One of them is we have to make better use of the spectrum we have. I'm sure all of you on this call have no visions of illusion that, the FCC is one of these days going to give us another allocation and we'll be golden. No, they're not gonna, give us any more spectrum. We're going to have to fight for it. You're going to have to participate in auctions, and we'll show you a couple bands where we're supporting that in the future, because that's the only way we're going to get more spectrum. But clearly, what we have, we need to use better and more efficiently, and to accommodate the needs, technology, and the application needs of the private wireless industry. So I'll cover a lot of those areas in a moment. So the other thing is, once the spectrum's there, we get it, and it's there, and there's new technologies, and it's our spectrum. We have to make sure that access and the solutions in those bands accommodate our licensees and your customers. And I think the third one is, we have to sort of protect our spectrum and protect its integrity from forces or efforts or other activities that could harm what we have as we're in the process of introducing new technologies and trying to use our bands more efficiently. So the first group is of things is we have to promote technology advances, and on a band-by-band basis. So one of the ones that is very important to EWA and others in this industry is the 900 megahertz proposal to create broadband at that band. Now, I know this has been about 3-4 years, and I know that not everyone in the industry, and perhaps several participants on the call today, they perhaps less than enthusiastic about this proposal. But when you look at the landscape, this band was given to us in 1985. It was the last allocation we received from the FCC. It is used heavily by critical infrastructure folks, petroleum, utilities, manufacturers, big manufacturers. There are several SMRs at 900, a few, not many, a handful, and it's pretty much the spectrum's gone in top 15, 20 markets. It is not gone elsewhere in the country. And this is, I look at, the opportunities for business, industrial, and land transportation, and even critical infrastructure to have a broadband network dedicated to their needs and their unique needs. And I don't know where we're going to get one, because FirstNet is dedicated, obviously, to public safety, and the big carriers are providing essentially consumer-oriented solutions on their networks. And there aren't networks dedicated, in my opinion, or in EWA's opinion, to business, industrial, land transportation, and critical infrastructure folks. And you have to believe it's just inevitable that the commission, who's seeking every kilohertz of spectrum for broadband, will eventually pay attention to this band, 900. There's 10 megs here at 900, below 1 gig. It's pretty important spectrum. So EWA don't like to sit and wait. I don't like to be defensive. It's just not a good way to be in Washington, D.C. You tend not to win your advocacy fights when you're on the defensive all the time. And so knowing that something's going to happen at 900, if maybe not this year or next year, but eventually, if we have the opportunity to craft a solution that accommodates business, industrial, land transportation, and CII folks, you most have to jump on the train. You can't sit there and wait for it to happen. It's just not good to wait for the FCC to come up with a proposal, because more than likely you're not going to like the FCC's proposal. So that's why we've been involved. I understand that there are people that are very concerned about this, but I've never seen the FCC adopt any policies or procedures or repurposing that was predatory on the incumbents. The incumbents have rights. They are moved to comparable spectrum. There is obviously some interruptions and things, but I think over time and how it's all proposed, it can be managed. And again, I've never seen the FCC adopt any policies that were predatory on incumbents. EWA couldn't be a part of it if it was. But my instincts tell me, now that the commission has released an NOI to look at rule changes to increase access to the spectrum and promote spectrum efficiency and create opportunities for next generation technologies and services, which is FCC slang for broadband, I think this item now has momentum. There has now been comments filed in response to notice of inquiry saying, yeah, we would like a broadband network dedicated to our unique needs. And so some of listen, there are still entities and licensees who are unhappy about this. But there are now entities that have filed comments that favor creating a broadband capability at 900 for dedicated to business, industrial, land transportation, and CII interests. I think there's something's going to happen this year. Next steps after an NOI, it's almost virtually impossible to predict what the FCC will do accurately, but they're going to do something this year, I believe. And normally the next step after an NOI is a notice of proposed rulemaking, which means everybody who has an interest in this band, interest in broadband, interested in narrowband, interested in technologies, interested in having a role, all get to play again in a set of comments to help shape the final rules. And so I think that's likely this year, and I'd rather be a part of the solution instead of throwing rocks at it, because that just doesn't work at the FCC. You have to be proactive and state a case and make sense and proceed along those lines. So 900, I think, is something's going to happen this year, and perhaps an NPRM. If somebody, don't hold me to it was next month. No, I don't think so. Probably third or fourth quarter. This is a complicated proceeding. Of course, it's nothing new. The Commission's written repurposing of bands many times, so they sort of have the template, but we'll see, and I think something's going to happen, and EWA will be active in this. So that's the 900 broadband. What else? 800 megahertz expansion in guard bands. All right, so how much is here? The expansion band is 40 kilohertz, 12.5 kilohertz channels, and the guard band is 40, 25 kilohertz channels. Now that's 80. Now in some parts of the country there's some public safety incumbents and some others in the expansion band, etc. So it may not be full complement of 80. But this is our spectrum, right? We're going to get it back, and and this has been going on for a couple of years too. So what was EWA's concern? So I look at this, and if when rebanding is completed and the TA blesses that a NIPSTEC region is clear, the bands the spectrum becomes available after a period of time, and there's been a pattern of applications being submitted by folks who believe there are riches to be made at 800, and so we've seen applications filed previously in areas like Fargo and Bismarck and Cedar Rapids and other important towns, but certainly not New York, Chicago, LA, those types of towns, and all the channels are gone in a matter of minutes. So I'm sitting there, EWA sits here, and its board looks at this, and we go, boy, there are a lot of incumbents who have invested significantly at 800 megahertz who have not been given the opportunity to expand their capacity or their geography for years. And so it would be a good idea perhaps to create a filing window limited to incumbents when these bands become available in certain regions. So we ran it through the Land Mobile Communications Council, and for those of you on the call who are unfamiliar with the LMCC, it is an organization currently composed of 17 land mobile trade associations. Not all of them are coordinators, but 17 of the leading private wireless organizations. And when you run advocacy matters through the LMCC, there's a formal process by which advocacy positions are identified. But EWA submitted it to the LMCC and said we should create a filing window reserved for incumbents, so they have an opportunity before others can come in so they can expand the geography and coverage. That was a petition filed by the LMCC. EWA helped facilitate that, get that on commission, but a lot of time has since passed, and since the time has passed, we know the following or some of the other views within the industry. WIA, they don't want me to call them WIA, so I'll say WIA, formerly PCIA, opposes any filing window reserved for incumbents. APCO, and this should be no surprise because this is what APCO does, God bless them. Any filing window should be reserved for public safety people only, which I understand them saying that, but it's highly unlikely that that will happen because there are a heck of a lot of substantial SMRs, manufacturers, utilities, petroleum entities, manufacturers, car manufacturers, using 800. And I can't imagine the FCC going, only public safety. So that would be sort of a travesty in my opinion, but I don't think that's going to happen. And NIPSTIC, good people, National Public Safety Telecommunications Council, said, have the filing window available for everybody but SMRs. Why they took that position, I'm not quite sure, since the SMRs are an integral part of providing solutions to our industry, and they serve, a lot of them also serve public safety people. So what we know is the FCC is drafting rules. So I think this one's going to be, there'll be an order, and we'll see what's in there. If I had to guess, they're going to favor a filing window for incumbents. I do not believe they will have a 6-month filing window, what we asked for, and I'm fine with that because we need is 6 minutes or 6 seconds before the potentially speculators and others come in. Our computer can take care of that. So I think the commission probably will not adopt 6 months, might be something less, but we'll know, and the industry will know because they'll do a public notice and everybody will know at the same time. The last thing that worries me about this allocation is that in certain areas there may be more applicants than there are channels. And when I say more applicants, I mean it's possible there could be a couple thousand applicants for this spectrum. And I believe that the structure that's in place now among the frequency advisory committees to ensure that there are no mutually exclusive applications, which would really upset the FCC if there were, I don't think the procedures in place can accommodate a couple thousand applications. And so EWA is going to prepare. We sort of have this. I ran this up the flagpole of the executive committee. We have some ideas on how we can potentially limit the opportunity for exclusive applications being submitted to the commission or the system breaking down, and it doesn't matter how many computers there are, or in all good intents and purposes, the system will fall apart, which would be not good. And so EWA is going to prepare and propose some amendments to the existing memorandum of agreement that all the business, industrial, and public safety coordinators have executed to accommodate those applications. And I need to do this soon. I'm not quite sure when the FCC is going to release what might be an order on how 800 may be accessed, but I think also that this will be a 2018 phenomenon. So for those of you on the call that need 800 or have customers who rely on 800, this is an important proceeding, and it's a good thing that EWA is involved. What else at 800? What are we doing promoting technology advances? Now, this one's really old, 6, 7, 8 years ago maybe. You just sit and watch what the vendors are doing, creating amazing digital products that network, just amazing products. And a lot of these products are using bandwidths less than 25 kilohertz. Could be using 11, 9, 8, 7, 4 kilohertz. And the existing channels are 25 kilohertz. So there's an opportunity. There is an opportunity to use this band to a greater extent by carefully accessing interstitials, which are 12.5 kilohertz channels within the 25. I also believe that this technology will be, that this matter might be in order. This has been going on for a while, will be released in 2018 as well. So that is pending. I'm not going to spend too much time on other things that are waiting other than 3.5 gig is a broadband. The Commission wants it back, but EWA has advocated small geographic areas when you do an auction so that our type of users, manufacturers, don't have to buy the entire state of Texas. They could buy priority access areas that are much smaller. 4.9 is 50 megahertz of spectrum. It's been stuck in neutral over the Commission for a long time. It's a lot. It was originally for public safety hotspots. I don't know where this is. It's just been stuck over there for a long time, which tells me that it's not going to be limited for public safety in the future. 6 gig, broadband, unlicensed. This is interesting. The FCC calls this the mid-band. So it must be pretty big mid-band. 3.7 to 24 gig is a lot of spectrum. But there's been a lot of pushback because there's a lot of users in that band. Interstitial channels, there are some guard bands, frequencies that are ideal for FB8 applications. We're trying to wiggle those things loose, and there's also been some coordination procedures to access central station channels for use for exclusivity FB8 channels, and we're working those too. Now policies. This is a big one. But what else we're paying attention to is the T-band. About 5 years ago, the Congress adopted some rules, act, and they said let's to make sure to make up for providing public safety 10 megahertz of spectrum and about $7 billion to build a national interoperable broadband public safety network. We want something back, and they asked for T-band back. Unfortunately, that was a rather quick decision. And the issues with it are, okay, so where do you move public safety if you take them away from T-band? And how do you know that the auction you're supposed to start in 2021 will generate sufficient revenues to pay for the relocation of public safety? And to make matters worse, there's no mention of any business, industrial, and transportation incumbents that occupy or the predominant or majority holder of the spectrum in 5 of the 11 T-band markets. So where is this? Well, public safety has now banded together, and they're going to go up to Congress. They're going to go there next month, and they're going to say this is not going to work because where you're going to move us, this is a security issue for the American public, and in areas like Boston, Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles, and probably some of the other cities, there's simply no spectrum to move these people to, and FirstNet will not be available for our type of needs, maybe not until, and I've heard this, and don't attest this to me, the 2025 or 2050, another 30 years from now. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what they're going to say. And so we were gonna file to do an amendment on the license application fees at T-band. We're going to hold off because we want to see what's better, lifting the freeze or killing the Section 6103 of the Middle Class Act, which repurposed the ban in the first place. Public safety's victory, if they succeed, will be business, industrial, and SMR's victory, our victory, because we're tagging along on this. And I just assume let public safety use all of their resources and things at Congress. And I've had conversations with the folks that are going up to Congress, and they said, we for sure will be mentioning that not only did you not understand that there's no comparable spectrum to move public safety, and that the auction revenues will probably be insufficient to cover the cost to move public safety, you also have embroiled business, industrial, land, transportation folks in this, and they have no place to go. If public safety doesn't have any place to go, certainly the business industrial folks don't. So this is an issue that EWA will be paying close attention to this year, and I think we'll have some news on this fairly soon, as early as next month, to see how public safety is doing. Another thing we're keeping track on is these World Administrative Radio Conferences. These are confabs where the world gets together and figures out what they're going to do with all their spectrum resources. And one of the things that popped up that we caught, actually thank you to the Monitoring Association, and they caught that in this one working group, there's a proposal to change the 460 to 470 band from a secondary use for weather satellites to primary use. Now, listen, I'm no technology people. That sounds like it could be a problem, and so we've asked. We're staying on top of this. There's some great people involved with this. One of them is David Ironman, a TIA, and some other folks, and we just want to make sure when they do testing to see whether this is going to be an issue or not, that private wireless interests are participating. I have the highest degree of confidence in David and others that are representing our industry that will make sure that there may be no interference, but we need to know that, and we're just not going to assume that there's no interference. But we need to monitor this, keep track of it. But this is something that obviously is on our dashboard. We're paying attention to. And here's sort of like the future, if you will. There's no more spectrum. There's no more spectrum for us. There's no more spectrum for federal government. There's no more spectrum for broadcasters. Commercial will get their hands on everything. So how do you accommodate all the new applications and new technologies? You have to share. You have to share. And no one's going to be immune from sharing. If DOD's got to give up their spectrum to share with commercial, we're all going to have to do it. So the FCC has this technical advisory council. These are pretty smart guys. I know them. Virtually all of them are also members of the CSMAC over at NTIA. And they have to they came up with some policies. And one of them is, we need a definition of what's interference. Every time there's sharing, you can't have people going, oh my God, my house is going to fall down, or it'll be cataclysmic interference. Well, you got to define what interference is first. Interference to baby monitors is different than interference to missiles and the DOD type of things. It's different. So there isn't any one definition for interference that'll work. So they recommend we need to have interference defined more precisely, and it will probably have different definitions depending on where it's being applied. We need interference limits. They call it a harms claims threshold. It's a term where there may be noise or additional noise or interference, but it's not devastating. There is at some point where the noise floor or whatever reaches a point and now you're being harmed. So we need to define those. The solution for sharing, this is obvious, is you have to have perhaps better and more robust technical rules for receivers. Because you can't, every time somebody wants you can't do this. Well, fix your receivers, and the problem goes away. And the other interesting policy that goes, if you're an incumbent, you should anticipate and plan for more noise and more interference, because it's coming, whether you like it or not. There's nothing you can do. There's more sharing going on. So they've adopted this policy. They've asked for comments. They adopted it in 2017. There's going to be comments coming up shortly, and EWA sort of likes all these recommendations. And now they have to be vetted, and they have to be finalized, and there's more tactics involved and stuff. But you can see conceptually that the FCC and the federal government people are going, it's a new day. And with sharing, we need better receivers, we need better definitions, we need to fix, because going to the commission or NTI complaining that you're going to get noise is like I said earlier, you don't even go, because they're not going to listen to it. And so it's good to have some guidelines, and I actually like that the Technical Advisory Council is pursuing this, and they worked under the Office of Engineering and Technology, so it was good. And if you're members, you'll be paying attention to this, because we'll cover what's going on with this, and because it's sort of an interesting, sort of like a watershed type of decision that the commission adopted. All right, I know I have this little slide on here. For those of you that know EWA, we're very concerned when public safety hops over the fence and wants to use business industrial spectrum, especially when they have like 80 channels at their disposal that they could use, and they don't want to use them for a variety of reasons. So we get involved in those, and we're reasonably successful. But you know what's it's sort of a quid pro quo. So we represent and work with a lot of major critical infrastructure, big businesses that need spectrum, and they need access to Sprint vacated spectrum, et cetera. And APCO and the other, they push back. So it's sort of like we have this little contest going on, who can be more annoying to each other about accessing each other's spectrum. You know, and the real solution is, if you're not using it, you ought to share it. And so I'm happy to put my rocks down and sit down with the public safety folks. Is there any kind of way we can collaborate more? Because at the end of the day, if the spectrum's not being used, and you don't have plants where you don't have everybody waiting in line, it's better for America and better for the people to share the spectrum. And because there's at least at 800 and some of these other bands, it's not the end of the day if you say, okay, go ahead and use one or two channels. So that's something I think we'll work on in 2018 as well. Again, these are things, I'll go through these quick. There's other matters awaiting action, and one of them is, 8 years ago the commission adopted this item that said, we need spectrum back. If you're not using it, you're not selling it, we're going to take it back and throw it into the broadband pool. So 8 years ago they had this big item they were working on, and remember all the licenses, there were special conditions that your renewal of this license would be contingent upon rules adopted in this. Well, at the end of the day, what they finally patted each other on the back for was that when you file your 601 at the time of renewal, you have to check 3 boxes. Are you using the spectrum for which you're licensed? Yes. Have you ever stopped using it? No. You check these boxes, and it could look what we did. Okay, so, but one of the ones that was sort of bizarre was they exempted public safety from this. And public safety didn't even ask for it. And we're sitting there going, we filed a petition for clarification. Commission, why did you exempt public safety? I mean, don't they have to better manage their spectrum as well? Why did you exclude them? Now, I know there's people at the FCC going, that crazy Crosby and Liz Sachs filed this thing, and we don't want asking for a clarification. We don't have a clarification. And they may tell us to go sit down and be quiet. But it was sort of an anomaly we thought we should ask. The CMRS presumption is something that Liz and EWA has been fighting for years. If you're not interconnected with a public switch telephone network, you shouldn't have to be regulated as a telecommunications provider as if you're T-Mobile and Verizon. So that's what we're pushing here. And we think there's light at the end of the tunnel, so stay tuned. We're still after conditional licensing in all bands, and there's some sort of goofy thing with signal boosters where the commission had some rules about personal use restrictions, which is sort of crazy, and we think we're going to get that resolved soon as well. So, keeping here to make sure I don't go over my time. For those of you, some of you know, but back in 98, or maybe it was 2000, something like that, we did an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the FCC's Enforcement Bureau, where EWA would be, or at the time ITA, would be the first gate, and people would have asked us to mitigate interference. We're happy to do that because we feel it's part of our charter as a Certified Frequency Advisory Committee to make sure that there's interference. We should help people understand it and help them resolve it. The problem is there's only 2 of all the Frequency Advisory Committees that executed an MOU, EWA and APCO. So what happens is over time you see that there's these goofy coordinations by some of the other coordinators that cause interference. So we don't do it, but we have to fix it. So it's sort of got like, well, why? This is sort of like crazy. The other coordinators are issuing corrupt applications, and interference results, and the people that suffer from the faulty coordination come to EWA and say, please fix this. So it's illogical. So what we've done is we now take every application that we did not certify, we run it through our proprietary software, and we could check everything. We could check spellings and stuff, but we don't do that. What's the most important thing we need to check? We need to make sure that incumbents who have FB8 exclusive channels, that coordination does not corrupt their investment and corrupt their FB8, and we have to make sure that somebody that's getting an FB8 being proposed has the right to that FB8, so it's a reciprocal analysis. So what we do is we take all the applications that we didn't certify, run them through our system, and identify faulty coordinations. And when we identify them, and we've been doing this for 8 weeks, and we found 50. So you can do the math. Over a year, there's probably 350 potential coordinations that were certified by other coordinators that are in violation of FB8 rules. We've actually caught a couple from major licensees who people put mobile-only, 300-unit mobile-only systems inside the service areas, FB8 service areas of trunk systems. So what do? We contact the Frequency Advisory Committee. We contact the applicant and tell them, you got a bad coordination. And here's proof. We give them a map showing, see what you've just done. And we also alert the incumbents. You're about ready to have your system corrupted by this bad coordination. So we have a template, how we follow it. And so far, with rare exceptions, there's only been a couple that didn't go through, the coordinators have corrected their applications. Some of them are annoyed at us, but I don't particularly care. Because if you're not going to do the coordinations right, imagine 350 bad coordinations corrupting incumbent FB8 trunk systems, either proposed or incumbents, every year. And if they don't respond to us, we go to the commission and say this is a bad coordination. And every time we've gone to the commission, I think, with a couple that were sort of goofy we're still wrestling with, the commission has dismissed the applications. And so this is working. And for those of you that care about private wireless, and if you're on this call, you do, if you're a vendor, you need to make sure that the system has appropriate checks and balances so that systems that you sold, sophisticated digital systems you sold, are not corrupted by faulty coordination. So we've launched this 8 weeks ago. It took us a while. We have special software. And I know that some of the coordinators are mad at us, but at the end of the day, I don't care. Because you can't do faulty coordinations, otherwise our regimen, the rules and regulations, and it just corrupts everybody, and then might as well just become a citizen ban radio service again. So this is important to us, and for those of you that are on the call, know that we do this. And our board's aware. And so it's unfortunate we found 50 in 8 weeks, and next week we might find another 50. We'll see. But this is something we launched late last year, and we're going to continue it because I can't have corrupt applications gumming up our channels because we're not getting any more. Here's something that's new, and I can't tell you how many calls I get on this. It's not that the equipment's from Asia. It's not that the equipment is inexpensive. It's all about that the equipment can be programmed to any frequency from virtually some of it, from 140 to 470 to 480, regardless of whether it's federal government spectrum, public safety spectrum, doesn't matter. You get these radios, you buy them on the internet. There's a couple of radio shops that sell them, and I've been told that when they ask why can't you're supposed to have licenses, they go, these radios don't need licenses because the power's low. Well, the ones we bought were 10 watts. And that's a pretty high power. I wouldn't want to hold that thing next to my ear for any extended period of time. The other thing is they're programmable. You can program them to any frequency. There's no licensing. And for those of you who go, well, only the pizza delivery guys are buying this stuff, that's absolutely untrue. This is an epidemic. You can go in shops and buy them, and police departments, fire departments, municipalities are all buying these things and deploying them, and it's just like, oh, this is not good. So one of the things we're going to do, and it's on my EWO's plate, we're going to have to go back to the Enforcement Bureau and go, this is potentially a disaster. And it's getting worse. It's an epidemic. And I don't think I don't know what to, and this is going to be tough. I need the Enforcement Bureau to step up. I need dealers to step up. I need vendors. This affects all of us. Affects all of us. What good are we doing coordination if I got about 5,000 units on any frequency in L.A. or San Francisco or Texas, wherever, indiscriminately picking frequencies and programming these devices on them? Oh, yeah, what else is wrong with them? They're not type accepted for Part 90. They're type accepted for amateurs. Some of them aren't type accepted at all. And the amateur bands are limited to slivers of spectrum. But I mean, obviously, if you buy it and you don't care, people don't. They don't know the difference between amateur, public safety. But they have no idea. This is a problem, and EWA's got to confront it. Since I need to leave time for questions, SIBO Go. This is my one commercial, but it's an important commercial. Every one of you on this call, every one of your salesmen, every one of your technicians, every vendor, every direct sales vendor, every channel partner should have download on the App Store or Google Play SIBO Go in their phones. SIBO Go is EWA's solution to the process that's in place today. You get certified frequencies if you're in, say, not a major area, within minutes, and in major areas within hours, because the computer still has to analyze. This is like a 6-step process. We need to know who you are. We need to know whether you want exclusive or shared channels, digital, analog, mobile only, or fixed stations. How many channels do you want, VHF or UHF? You click boxes. You say thank you, and within minutes or hours, depending on where you are, you get certified frequencies back on your phone. No money has been incurred yet. And if you like the frequencies, you go, I want these are certified, by the way. These aren't like maybes. These count. These are certified frequencies, certified by EWA. And you hit a go button. I want them. And you're done. And the application, we do the rest. And you got frequencies. So if you're sitting in front of a customer and they go, well, what frequencies am I going to use? Well, let me run up to the SIBO Go. And probably by the time you're there or leave there, because you'll have certified frequencies. So not only am I selling you this trunk system or conventional mobile-only system, here are the frequencies that we can program today. And so when we say certified frequencies today, we mean it, and we call it SIBO Go. Download it, because it'll revolutionize the way if you're a user, a licensee, you go to a new area. I'm going to open a new plant. What's here? Can I use the other ones? Are there shared channels? Are there exclusive channels? You get it. If you're a salesperson for a wireless sales and service organization, I'm going to go talk to this customer today. I want to know if there's frequencies for them. You can load it before you get there. Answers come back, and you're ready to go. No paperwork, no logging on, doing passcodes. You're in. And it's internet-based. And, again, you don't incur any costs until you hit the go button and say, I want these. So there's my little commercial. If you don't have SIBO Go, download it on your phone today. You should. Is this where I turn it back over to you, Andrea?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I don't want to take a lot of time because I want to leave time for your questions, but I would like to encourage you to keep the conversation with EWA going. If you're a member, we have offered you a number of easy ways to keep in touch with us. That's including our biweekly regulatory call, our advocacy newsletter, The Insider, a number of professional development opportunities, including our leadership summit and webinars. And if you're not a member, the only thing I can tell you is that I encourage you to become a member. There's information on this slide to get in touch with our membership manager, Garrett Sheehan. I think you should take a look at us if you haven't already. And like I said, we offer a number of access to resources and information and the opportunity to connect with thought leaders like Mark, as well as the members of our board of directors. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And with that, I'm saying thank you, and let's start talking about the question.
Screen first. Andrew Roy asks, Mark, for the TAC recommendations, how do you go from what we have now to the more defined future? That's a great question. I think it's going to be. I think it's sort of a common knowledge now that there's going to be more sharing. This is a response to Andy Roy. So, how do we go from the TAC recommendations where we have now to the more defined future? I think it'll be on a band-by-band basis, proposal basis, but I think there has to be common knowledge that if you're an incumbent and you go, oh, the adjacent band they're going to do this, and I can't. The commission's not going to. If you go complaining to them, they go, this is the new rules. Expect interference, collaborate with new users, work towards solutions, deploy better receivers, because there's sharing coming, and sitting there and complaining is not going to win the day in the future. So I think it's not going to be a blanket kind of thing. I think it's going to be on a band-by-band, and I think it has to be recognized by incumbents and proponents for new sharing that these are going to be sort of the rules of the road. No one's going to be guaranteed exclusive interference-free spectrum for the future. It's just not possible. Next question. Jacob Zand, do you believe the FCC is currently drafting an NPRM for the Niner proceeding? My instincts say they are certainly drafting something. And let me give you, it's not a warning, it's just sort of an observation. I've never seen the FCC respond to a petition for rulemaking that's been vetted this much that matches the ask 100%. In all my years, you ask the commission for X, you get Y. I've never seen them give you X. So I don't think the 900 megahertz proceeding will be any different. So people, you look at it and go, oh, they're going to give PDB everything. No, I don't think so, because they probably have different ideas, different strategies for this band. And so I think we all need to be prepared for that. The commission never gives you 100% what you ask for. And so we'll see what develops. But I don't think they're sitting on their hands at this. It's broadband. And that's the magic words. And again, I'm all in favor of a broadband solution for business, industrial, and CII guys, dedicated to them. But they I don't know. They may not agree with that. I don't know. But we'll see. I think they're obviously working on something. They're not going to sit on this because I think it's too important. And the next question from Mr. Zand was, how is consensus building with incumbents going in this proceeding? Let me see the rest of this. Have there been material positive with large participants? I can't speak to Southern or Duke or Census or some of these other ones. I'm not involved in those EWA is not involved in those direct discussions with those entities and incumbents. PDB Wireless is, and my sense is that they're having a modicum of success discussing alternatives and solutions with a number of the parties. Question came up, when do you think the FCC will mandate further narrowbanding? Not while I'm still working. They handled it a different way. They put the onus on the vendors, the manufacturers, to produce equipment, VHF, UHF, that was 6 1/4 equivalent or had an efficiency minimum. And by the way, you don't need 6 1/4 channels to get to it. I mean, you can, and they adapt to certain digital products produced by Kenwood and others, ICOM and others, that are 4K, but you still get the same efficiency with 12.5 or 25 kilohertz channels, given the some of the digital dual voice path and things that Tetra has 4. I mean, it doesn't matter how you get there. Tetra's 4 voice with 25, 2 turbos is 4 and XDN is 4. There's all kinds of solutions to get to efficiencies, and that's what people are buying because they have the better applications and things. I wouldn't favor, and we don't need it, another mandate to say 6 1/4 and further narrowbanding. Can I get exclusive use frequencies using CVO Go? The answer is yes, just like you would any other. If you need exclusive, say CVO Go doesn't provide the perfect solution for exclusive channels, you need to call EWA. That's a whole nother webinar we've done. There are about 12 other methods to grind, block, and tackle to find exclusive use channels, and they're all sort of unique to the application and the ask. So CVO Go, yeah, you can ask for exclusive channels, CVO Go, and you can get them. If it comes back no, and all you get is shared frequencies, all you got to do is pick up the phone and go, what else can we do to get FB8s? And there are a bunch of other ways to do it, possibly. Down tilting antennas, buying somebody off that's in the way, moving them to another frequency, guard band frequencies at 450. There's all kinds of ways, and you just have to work a little harder for them, and we're happy to do that. I think it's going to be a interesting year. The commission's focused on broadband. They got their hands full with net neutrality rules that they've done, and public safety's up on Capitol Hill. We're to get back T-band. We're rooting them on and wish them all success, and because then we'll win too. And I'm watching 800. By the way, when you think that when the commission adopts rules, expansion guard band, interstitial things, that we're ready. No, EWA has to invest in its software to accommodate the new rules, so that we can provide a high level of service to you. And by the way, this fact validation, the way we're verifying the other coordinators, we don't get paid to do this. We're doing it because we think we have to do it to preserve the landscape and make sure the spectrum is good for future uses and future applications. So we're going to be busy this year, and it's all for benefit of this industry and our members, and we're happy to do it. What time is it? I don't see any more questions. If you have any further questions that want to talk to me or any other EWA staff or offline, by all means give us a ring. We're eager and very happy to discuss things with you. And just call us. I'm happy to do it. That's all I have, Andrea.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As Mark said, we're happy to take additional questions. Our information is on this slide that's on the screen right now. We have been recording this webinar, and we will make that recording available to you shortly. You'll have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.